Are you looking to improve your shoulder mobility for baseball? Well, this is going to be the video to help you out with these simple exercises to improve your shoulder mobility. Let's get to it. Hey there, Brandon Swilley here from Thirst Gym, and I'm going to help you improve your shoulder mobility today with these couple exercises and techniques that we use to help open up not only the shoulder joint, but thoracic mobility. As a baseball player, generally you're always focusing on the shoulder, but the truth of the matter is the way that your scapula works around your rib cage and your thoracic extension and flexion and rotation is going to dictate everything that's going to happen here at the shoulder as well. So they work synergistically together to give you that optimal space overhead, but so that you can access that internal external rotation, your follow through, your layback, all of those things that affect how hard you can throw the baseball. We're going to want to make sure we take a multifaceted approach to improving that shoulder mobility that's ultimately going to help you throw the baseball harder and farther. All right, so the first thing I like to have my baseball players do is focus on some soft tissue care. And while this is never super sexy, doing this day in and day out is probably going to help you. You're going to want to take a lacrosse ball and a wall or something hard that you can place that ball into. What we're going to do is we're going to take that ball, place it up here high on our pecs, close to our shoulders, and we're just going to roll that across the front of our shoulder and pec, back and forth. We can also make some circles, and then you're just going to spend some time where you're feeling a little bit more pressure or uncomfortableness, and you're just going to roll back and forth. And then you can also move your arm through different ranges of motion here, and you can find what's kind of bothering you, and you can begin to loosen up that shoulder. But most importantly, just getting in there around the pecs, the anterior part of the shoulder, is just going to feel good. And what it's going to do is be able to give us some soft tissue work, especially in your throwing shoulder, but you can still do both sides. The other thing you're going to want to do is take this and place this up in your lap. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it against the wall again. You're going to put it up here by your armpit. You're going to lean into that wall and that ball, and you're going to feel that be kind of uncomfortable. You can take your hand all the way up. You can also bring it by your head, your ear on the other side, and you're just going to go up and down. Very small ranges of motion. You're probably going to feel that lat, the teres minor, teres major, that whole complex there. Really going to feel that. We're going to go back and forth. You might even feel it in your tricep a little bit as well. That long head. And you're just going to do that for about 15-30 seconds. And then you do the other side. What you're going to find is that's immediately going to help your shoulder feel better. That's going to help prep us for the next couple exercises, improving that mobility. Okay, exercise number 2 is what I call a half kneeling T-spine wall rotation. So what you're going to want to do is stay by that wall that you're using for your lacrosse ball work. We're going to take inside leg down, outside leg up, and we're going to make sure that our knee stays nice and forward. And we're going to take our hands on the back of our head here, lock our hands together, and what we're going to do from this position is just make some big circular arcs with our inside elbow, and this is going to challenge our thoracic rotation through both flexion and extension, and we're also going to get that hip complex involved as well. So my right leg that's down, that hip flexor is also going to get some mobilization as well. So we're going to tie that whole chain together, not only looking at thoracic rotation and mobility, but also using our hip mobility as well, because they are tied together in terms of your total performance. So from here, I'm going to take my inside elbow. I'm going to make a big arc. I'm going to come up. I'm going to start to side bend, knee towards elbow or elbow towards knee, and then I'm going to come this way, around here, go as far as I can this way, and again, that's where I'm going to start to get that extension through my thoracic spine, but also through my lumbar spine and my hip here as well. And then I'm just going to make that circle back, and I'm just going to go back and forth through this about 5 or 6 times, making sure that my knee stays forward, going extension. I'm really trying to challenge myself through rotation. As you can tell, I'm not the best at this, but what that's going to do is, again, allow me to rotate, twist, and work through different ranges of motion for my thoracic mobility. And that soft tissue work with this is now going to open it up for our next drill, which is really going to focus more towards the thoracic spine and just the shoulder, and opening that up before you actually get to any of your strength work or before you go to throw the baseball. All right, the next exercise we're going to do is what's called a kettlebell arm bar. Now this exercise is going to be awesome for opening up your thoracic spine, building on what you just did there at the wall, but now we're actually going to open up our shoulder joint more specifically through internal external rotation, through a little bit of load. And this exercise works awesome. You're really going to probably feel your shoulder really open up after doing this. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the kettlebell. A kettlebell works best. You use a dumbbell if you're in a pinch, but the kettlebell you're gonna see is gonna actually challenge the motion a little bit more. And I'll show from different views here, but I'm gonna take my hand in the kettlebell, my right hand here. I'm gonna have my right leg actually plant on the floor, and then my left leg is just kind of in line with my hip where it would normally be. My other hand that's not on the kettlebell is gonna be out to the side, okay? Now I'm gonna make sure knuckles are towards the ceiling, and I really wanna make sure that as I go to do this activity, I'm actually gonna roll towards my left. So if it's in my right hand, I'm gonna roll the other way. As I go to do that, my leg's gonna come up, it's gonna come across. I'm gonna inhale. As I inhale, I'm gonna rotate my thumb away from me. I'm gonna always keep my head looking at the bell. Inhale here, and as I inhale, I'm gonna take my right leg and I'm gonna continue to reach it as long as I can. So as you can tell, I'm through extension here, but I'm still also using my thoracic mobility, and I'm in external rotation here of my shoulder. I'm gonna take a big inhale. And as I go to exhale, I'm gonna twist away and come back to my returning position. So roll, inhale, exhale, and each roll you should feel like you get a little bit further, and then exhale. And then if I'm gonna do the other side, again, left leg's up, right leg's down, left hand to the kettlebell, right arm's out to my side. Inhale, bring that knee across, leg across. I'm gonna really try to shoot my junk or my adductors towards the floor. And then I'm in that good inhaled state. And I'm gonna exhale and come back. Inhale, exhale. And so what that does is, as we mentioned, it's gonna give you that thoracic rotation and extension, but we're also getting that internal, external rotation underneath load, and we're actually trying to reach towards the ceiling. And as we do that, it's gonna get our serratus involved, and then we're actually going to be training through the internal and external rotation. And the kettlebell, that load, the perks of the kettlebell is as we go to do that, that load's actually gonna help turn us a little bit more into external rotation than what we normally would have. And as we go into internal rotation, we're actually gonna come back through. So as you can see, this is really gonna be a multifaceted attack at your whole shoulder complex. Now we should be able to go actually do some strength training portion, which is the next important piece. All right, now that you've done your soft tissue work and your mobilization and you're ready to go, another key important thing when it comes to improving shoulder mobility is strengthening the serratus anterior. And as a baseball player, you're gonna wanna make sure that your scapula is nice and flush around your rib cage and can actually rotate and come around that rib cage naturally. A great exercise or series of exercises to be able to do this are landmine-based activities. So I'm gonna take the bar here in my case, shove it into landmine, and you can load up with weight as you needed. I'm just gonna show a staggered stance press here, but you can perform these from half kneeling, tall kneeling, different rotational options. There's tons of landmine variations. I'll link some of those in the description box below for you to check out. But the key thing here is that we make sure that we're reaching forward and in front of us. So from the landmine here, the nice thing is my shoulder's not packed down like it would be on like a bench press. So the landmine is gonna be more advantageous if you're trying to improve your shoulder mobility and how hard you can throw. And so from this staggered stance position here, I got one leg forward, one leg back, knees are a little bit soft, hands at the end of the barbell. I'm gonna press and reach. And so this is the advantage of the landmine, is that as I go to do this, I can actually reach, and I'm gonna get that upper rotation from my scapula. It's gonna get my serratus involved. I just wanna make sure that I'm not extending in this position. I'm still staying my rib cage down so that I can actually own that scapula position as I go to press overhead. So this would be the ideal strength-based exercise that you would do to still maintain that mobility and improve that serratus strength, which is then ultimately gonna help you throw harder and keep your shoulder feeling good. And by strengthening that serratus, working on that upper rotation, and still actually pressing out in front of us, anytime you go to throw, your shoulder's gonna feel better. And we just strengthened everything around that shoulder joint, that particularly around the humerus and the glenohumeral joint is all going to be nice and strong because we've opened everything up, and now that we're actually training through those ranges of motion, we're gonna be in a stronger position. If you don't have a landmine, I would still recommend doing different push-up variations or anything that's actually gonna get your arms out in front of you, but so your shoulder blades aren't pinned back and down like in a bench press. Landmine and push-up variations are going to be key for you if you're trying to increase your mobility of your shoulder joint, but still trying to throw hard and build some general strength. I'll have some of those exercises linked below. Now let's talk about the final piece that you can do that's going to help all this stick together, and that's going to be focusing on shoulder stability now that you've worked on all that mobility work. All right, the next two things I'm going to show you here is going to be for stability of your shoulder. So while we do want to try to increase the mobility of our shoulder joint, we still have to work on the stabilization aspect. So something I really like for this is a kettlebell bottoms up hold or a carry. The key thing when you're holding this is we want to make sure that we're actually reaching forward and we're owning the position. Okay, so it's not just holding it in the bottoms up position, which isn't awful, but we want to optimize that, especially if you're playing baseball. So with the kettlebell holding it upside down, we want to make sure that not only our knuckles are towards the ceiling, but I'm actually reaching forward with this arm. So notice I'm not just keeping it packed down here. This feels tremendously easier. I feel like I could do this for a minute if I needed to. But if I bring it out here, 90 degrees and actually reach, you can tell my body's actually turning the other way, and I can feel my serratus and all the small musculature around my shoulder joint actually having to work hard. Okay, then I would go to the other side. The other option here that you have is that you could perform that walking. So I would need a lighter one if I was going to do that to be able to demonstrate it. But what I would do is take my kettlebell here, hold it in that position, and then walk in place nice and slow. And so by able to walk with the weight, that's gonna create a little bit more instability, focusing on me to create that irradiation, which is basically gonna be my wrist all the way fed into my shoulder, and then trying to stabilize with my serratus and my other surrounding musculature all around that glenohumeral joint. And that's gonna really tax everything here, but not only is it gonna tax it, it's gonna strengthen them isometrically in a challenging position, which is that reach position, that serratus, which anytime you go to throw that baseball, you're gonna be in that reach position, okay? So this is gonna be as close as we can, because we're not gonna hold a kettlebell like this, but it's gonna get us as close as we can to mimic that position to stay nice and statically strong. And by being strong there, anytime we go to throw that baseball, that's gonna help us out. Now let's talk about the last final stabilization exercise, which is really gonna be geared more towards pitchers, if I'm being honest, but still it's gonna be important for all baseball players. If you're a pitcher, you're definitely gonna wanna check this one out. All right, the final piece of the puzzle is what I like to call a split stance in-range liftoff. And so what this is gonna do is it's gonna focus on strengthening and stabilizing the shoulder joint at end ranges. And so what you're gonna want is like a rack or something you can put your arm against. A door frame will work if you're doing this at home. And what you're gonna do, I'm gonna show you some different angles here as well. But if I'm right-handed, I'm gonna take my right leg back, my left leg forward. Elbow's gonna be up like I'm in my arm slot here. And then from this position, I'm gonna take my elbow, push it firmly into the rack or the door frame, whatever you're using at home. And I just wanna make sure I'm not extending in this position. I wanna keep my rib cage down, my knees are soft. I'm gonna take my hand, I'm gonna reach back as hard as I can and squeeze as hard as I can in this position. So 1001, 1002, 1003, come off, relax, go again. 1001, 1002, 1003, come off. Try to get a little bit further here again. 1001, 1002, 1003. If you're doing this correctly, you're gonna feel this really on the back side of your shoulder, okay? So you're not gonna feel this in the front, you're actually gonna feel this in the back, and we're gonna work on the external rotation part and keeping that nice and strong. If you're doing this with a training partner, what you can do is you can have your training partner add what's called permutations or small movements to make it a little more challenging. So you'd be in this position, your partner is then gonna move your arm as you're trying to maintain that position, and that's gonna increase your strength and stability at those end ranges. So I'll show you that again here from a different view. Again, here, split stance, position, knees are soft, elbows right up around my shoulder area. And again, ribs are staying down, extend, 2, 3, as hard as you can. This is a maximal contraction. As long as you're not going through extension here, we're trying to keep that down. We're trying to strengthen that end range as much as we can. And so what that's gonna do is as you go through the baseball, again, this is really important for pitchers, as you're going to do that, we're in that in range when we go to actually throw. It's gonna make sure that we're strong in that in range position. So tying all of that together is gonna not only help your mobility of your shoulder, but you're gonna strengthen around those ranges and the areas that you need to strengthen. It's gonna tie all this together to not only improve your mobility, but improve your throwing power and how hard and far you can throw the baseball. All right, in conclusion, as you can see, there's more than just doing basic stretching and mobility drills that's gonna help you improve your mobility about your shoulder joint for the sport of baseball. At the end of the day, we ought to understand that baseball is a very unique sport when it comes under the demands of the shoulder. And the shoulder is put underneath a lot of stress when it comes to throwing high velocity based objects like the baseball. So my suggestion here today, if you're not taking away, is to do some general mobility work. Start with soft tissue, focus on your thoracic mobility, not just your direct glenohumeral or shoulder mobility, but you still obviously want to work on some of that glenohumeral mobility. So that's where I think the kettlebell arm bar is really superior to a lot of exercises. So once you've done those three things to really open your shoulder up, then make sure you're strengthening through smart exercise selection in the weight room, and that's going to really help increase not only your throwing power, but strengthen you in those ranges of motion that you've really opened up. And then finally ending things with focused, quality, stability-based work that's going to improve your mobility over the long run. Being strong at those end ranges of motion are probably where you're going to be the most apt to get hurt or have injury when it comes to the sport of baseball and throwing a baseball. You're usually going to find that you're getting injured at the end ranges because that's where you're the weakest throughout the range of motion that you're throwing. It's usually not in the middle. It's these long whips, long levers that are causing issues to the shoulder joint. So if we can get strong in those areas after we've really worked to improve those areas, you're going to tie everything together and it's all going to cement and help you better as an athlete. So if you happen to take away one thing from here, I'd really appreciate it. Do me a favor, hit that like button, comment what you learned or what you think you're going to take away from this to help your throwing ability. And if you could do me a favor, subscribe and just share with a friend that might benefit from this to be able to help you or help them as a baseball player. Again, I appreciate you checking in, and I'll see you at the next video.